with Justin Metcalf from Metcalf Mills, and we invited him out to the property so we could learn about our property.
We've learned so much about our property in the last hour. 2 hours from this gentleman.
You got a property with a creek on it.
Yeah. We couldn't say no. We couldn't get a property without a creek after all the searching we did.
And all the times we passed up these gorgeous properties that didn't have a creek.
Right.
Or they had a little creek. I was like, I want a big creek.
Well, if I was going to move, I'd do the same. I'd have the same standard. I got to have a creek.
So the creek goes up about 500 feet that way to our property line, and then probably another 600 feet down that way to the next viewpoints for us.
You know anything about that dam?
No.
I bet that was a mill dam.
Oh, really?
I bet.
A mill dam?
Yeah, for a grain mill.
Really?
I bet. That's usually the only reason they dam creeks.
He's even more excited now. We actually had him out because he's on a path that's something that means a lot to you, and we wanted to have you explain to us and to our viewers what that is, and then we happened upon that site down the river.
Right.
This is what we were looking for.
All right. See if you can spot what we're looking at.
Yeah.
See those rock structures?
Yeah. I gotta go look at this.
Okay, all right, let's go down.
Yeah, and it's, I can't think of the right word either, but it's just...
Yeah, serendipity, coincidence, kismet, it was but definitely something special that we found.
Yeah.
We'll have to look in the library and the dictionary to find the right word.
Right.
So you are on a path to create grain mill, is that right?
That's right. I grew up listening to stories, especially from my dad, but from my mom as well, about when they, in their childhood, they would go to the grain mill every week. And my grandpa, on my dad's side, he ran a community grain mill, and my dad told me about that at a young age, and he'd go with my grandpa, and they'd mill people's corn and make cornmeal, because in the mountains, that's what everybody lived off of. That was a staple. And my dad would say, yeah, I'd go in there and that cornmeal would be coming out of that spout, and I'd stick my hand under it and get me a handful and eat it, and it was so good, and it smelled so good. And just how he felt when he was telling me that, it just excited me about that. So my grandpa still had this little Meadows cornmeal, grain mill, and the bottom of the wood had rotted off of it. It was sitting in one of his sheds, and when I was 14, he gave me that little thing.
Oh, wow.
And I had some lumber sawed at the sawmill to restock it. And when I was 15, I rebuilt this grain mill. And I had to set the bed stone in concrete and line it up with the runner stone and do it. And I didn't have anybody to help. I mean, there's very few people now that know anything about that. And I was able to figure it out and make the little mill work again. And when I hooked it up to my dad's little garden tractor, little lawn tractor, I was able to run a belt out the side of that and get it working. But I remember the first time that I milled corn with that thing, I scooped up some cornmeal and put it in a bag and took off running and run all the way to my grandpa's house and showed him that cornmeal, because this little cornmeal hadn't been used in 50 years.
Wow.
And, you know, he was really excited that I had got it to work again.
Yeah.
And I've just loved it ever since. And in 2012, I got the opportunity to build a water mill from the ground up. After that, it kind of got me roused up again about mills. And since then, I've done several restorations on grain mills, and they're everywhere from Indiana, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, all over the place, Georgia. It's been a dream of mine for 10 plus years to build my own design of a stone grain mill. I kind of got held up a little bit. My folks got sick, my parents, and I had to spend a year and a half taking care of them, and I couldn't work. But I lost both of them last year, and it just seems like it's time. So I started working on this idea and this dream, and I've got the biggest half of a prototype built. And a lot of folks that I've talked with about it, they get excited because if you think about it, 100 years ago, the grain mill was kind of the heart of the community. And it didn't matter who you were, everybody went to the grain mill. And it's just so important, but come to find out, I didn't realize how important. Then I start getting calls from folks. I got a call from a lady in Waco, Texas. She lives in an apartment building down there with her 2 children. And she said, Justin, keep going, because I kind of talked about what my plan was and what I was trying to do. She said, keep going, you're on the right track. She said, me and my kids had some health problems, and I started doing some research into food and this and that. She ordered some organic grain, got her a little hand crank countertop grain mill, and she started grinding this grain and making bread. And that's all they eat as far as bread. And she said, they're all well now.
Wow.
Other folks have told me how their health is improved by eating this fresh milled grain. And the key to it is the fresh milled. Because a grain's like a capsule, you all may already know this, but everything's kind of contained in there, and when you break it open, it's like an apple or anything else, it starts going downhill. So like within 24 hours of cracking a grain, you lose like 40% of its nutritional value, its vitamins and whatnot, and another 2 or 3 days you lose 85 or 90%.
Oh, wow.
So you can't get anything in the grocery store that's...
Even if it's sealed and packaged and...
Right. The thing about it is, like when they commercialized milling, they started using roller mills with steel rollers instead of stone grinding, and they extract the biggest part of the grain, which is the endosperm, and they separate all the bran and all the good stuff out of it because it'll keep longer in a bag on a shelf. So you don't get the good stuff, you only get that. So that's potentially, and I think it does cause you problems because you're not getting the whole grain.
Yeah.
There's natural oils in the bran, and when you crack it open, and that will cause it to start spoiling. So they had to separate that out to preserve it. So if you go to the store and buy a sack of flour or cornmeal or whatever, you don't know when it was ground, how long it's been in a bag. You don't know anything about it.
Right.
And my hope is to get more grain mills out to folks in communities so that not only folks can eat healthier and better, but maybe stir up some more community and encourage community.
You mentioned the lady in Texas, I think you said.
Yep.
She has a tabletop grinder.
Right.
What size grind mill are you going to be making?
Today I did a little small clip on my grain mill that I'm working on, so you can kind of get a feel, but it's about the size of a large dining room chair.
Okay.
And it's going to look really nice and be made really well, and it'll have, the smallest one's going to be 12-inch diameter stones. So the length of a ruler, that's how big the stone diameter is. And you can mill anything from corn, wheat, any kind of small grains. I'm going to try some rice and see how that does. Pretty much any free-flowing grain you can mill with this thing. And it's going to be stone ground. And stone is the best. The burrs on the stone, the way it shears the grain, it's just, as far as flavor, texture, all that stuff, it's the best. You can't beat it. I'm going to have one in my kitchen, you know. It's small enough that and it's going to look good enough, I think, in my opinion, to go to be a nice piece of furniture, I guess you could say.
Designer model?
Yeah, and I want to build a bigger size as well for larger community use. But the small one, it would serve a small community. I mean, a 12-inch mill and 100 years ago was a small commercial mill. Most of the production stone mills today, if you can find one, they run way too fast. They heat up because of all that high-speed friction, and it heats up your product, and that hurts it. You kind of cook it before it ever comes out of the mill. Well, most of them are vertical stones where the stones stand up side by side, and you got your runner that turns like the wheel on your car or truck or something. My design will be, it's not my design, it's a design that's been used for hundreds of years, but you got the bed stone and you've got the runner stone on top, and the runner stone turns. And you can run that at a slow RPM because of the way it works. As the runner stone, the grain falls into the eye of the millstone, and as the runner stone turns, the grain comes out all around the outside edge, and it's swept around to the spout to go either in your bin to scoop it out in a bag in a bucket, or into a
cereal bowl.
Right, or into a separator to separate the flour and the bran and all that kind of stuff with whatever you're using it for. So it's going to be very versatile, and if you buy a mill today, it's going to have an electric motor on it. Like anything else, that's your only option to operate it.
Right.
My mill will have a style drive pulley that you can run with your tractor off your PTO. You can run it off of an old engine, maybe even a garden tractor, a water wheel.
A water wheel.
I mean, it's just endless, and you won't be limited to one power source, which is electric. You can have that option if you want an electric motor. It'll be with it, but if you want to use a different option, you can.
If I have one of these, does that mean that I need to have a field of wheat to then grind? Or can I go to the store and buy a whole grain that would be as nutritious when I grind it? That
would be great, and the good thing about it is, with the grain being contained, you can buy, like that lady was ordering like a 25-pound bucket of wheat, and it would, last for a pretty good while. And I recommend getting organically grown stuff, no chemicals. And that's another thing, folks have been so serious about gluten allergies. Well, when you come to find out, I've heard from a lot of people they had gluten allergies, so they stopped the bread. It's really good because the kind of bread they were getting was not good for them. Right. But when you really get into it, most of the time, I'm not saying nobody has gluten allergies, but most of the time, when wheat or small grains are grown commercially, they spray them with glyphosate, which is Roundup, to kill the crop, and it makes it easier to harvest with a combine because the grain comes off of it easier when it's that dead. Well, a grain has a little cavity. There's no way to get that out of it. Once you spray it on the grain, it's going to be there. So what a lot of people have found out, they don't have a gluten allergy.
They have a Roundup allergy.
They have a poison allergy. Roundup or glyphosate. Yeah, it's not a gluten allergy, it's a chemical allergy.
Wow.
And so many folks that once they start eating something that's organically grown, they don't have a problem. I know this one family, they grind their own grain and make bread, and the lady says some days she eats a whole loaf of bread, and as far as she has no problem, her digestion's great.
She got all that fiber, she got all the nutrients, she got the oil, she's got the,
it's so good for you. I mean,
you have a Kickstarter. Is it open still?
Yeah, it's going to be open until Friday evening, 4:15.
All right, so that means
we got to post.
When you're watching this video, time is of the essence. So we will definitely make sure we have a link to that Kickstarter down below if you want to chip in. So if somebody contributes into Kickstarter, how are they helping out? What's the benefit to them?
What that's going to do is it's going to make it so that I can produce these grain mills way faster than if I do it all on my own. I got to make some upgrades, things like that. It's going to buy materials and things like that to get started. If I do it on my own, it's going to be really slow, and there's a lot of people interested, and a lot of people need these mills. I mean, and it's going to really ramp up. It's going to kickstart the grain mills.
Right.
There you go.
So I didn't even know what a Kickstarter was, and some friends heard about what I was trying to do, and they said, you need to do a Kickstarter. It'll help get this thing off the ground a lot faster. And I was a little bit reluctant, but after I thought about it, and then I started talking to more folks, and I could see how excited they were, and they wanted to help. They wanted to be part of this.
Right. Yep.
So it's
cool.
Yeah.
When somebody else is excited about your dreams, it makes
it even better. When you have community, it makes it so much better.
It does. That's right.
Yeah. Links down below. I'll also put a link to you have a few videos on what you're doing, so I'll put links to those down below as well. And we would love your support.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep.
If you can help or share or whatever, I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I call this my dream, grain mills for communities. So.
I like it.
We just wanted to put together a small little thank you and appreciation for Justin for coming over. And as Nate and I have been sitting here thinking about reflecting on his visit, we just wanted to share that we've always been really big on building community. It's been something that's been important to us on our journey. And meeting with Justin and just hearing his passion about these mills and about how it can bring a community together just really inspired Nate and I. We have 60 acres and we've really been trying to think of the best ways to utilize the land. After having Justin out and discovering really what this land had been used for, we think we can bring it back.
Yeah.
How exciting would that be? If this is something that also interests you, either having, this sense of community or having the ability to have fresh grains more widely available to individuals, there's a number of ways that you can help. You can share this information, you can share this video, you can share the Kickstarter link, or you can donate yourself. Any way is appreciated. So we thank you so much for your time and attention today. Yeah. As you can hear, we're just super excited. Yes. So both Nate and I and Justin all kind of share. So thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.